Hi folks, my name's Ruth Cheesley and today I'm going to be talking a bit about what we mean by contributions in Mautic and how we track those across the different channels that we monitor. So you may have heard us talking about something called Savannah if you've been listening to us talking about contributions. This is the open source tool that allows you to track community health, which we've been using for the last few years. It's available on GitHub, so you can go and have a look at the source code and understand how it works if you want to at github.com/savannahhq/savannah. We actually use a hosted version primarily because we just don't have the infrastructure team to support running it self-hosted. But this is what we are talking about when we're talking about tracking contributions, when we're talking about reporting on who's the most active and all of that kind of stuff. All of that information is coming from this tool. So that's what we're talking about if we're talking about tracking or interpreting how things are going with contributions. So there are lots of different ways that we track contributions in Mautic, and I've always been really clear that actually it's just as important to an open source project to think about code contributions and code reviews as it is to think about people who are helping with your marketing, people who are helping with community health, people who are running meetups. They're all really important to the health of your open source project, and they're all really important to Mautic. So I'm going to run through all the different things that we consider currently as contributions and what we mean by a contribution in those places. So to start with the obvious, so GitHub comes out of the box with Savannah that whenever you make a pull request, it logs that as a contribution. Now we track something like 52, 54, something like that repositories in the Mautic organization on GitHub. Anytime you make a pull request in any of those, it will be considered as a contribution. We also, through the API, have added tracking when you make a formal pull request review. So this is not leaving a comment on a pull request. That's considered an activity, but not a contribution. When you make a formal pull request, that's when you go to Files Changed and you use the green button to say Start a Review, and you approve request changes or leave a comment. That is what we mean when we talk about leaving a review, where you approve or request changes. And you can have a look at the steps documented to explain the process that you have to go through to actually leave that review. We've documented it in the docs to make sure that people understand how to have their reviews counted in that way. Slack is obviously a really important part of our community, and sometimes people do provide really useful help, or they do provide feedback in the Slack channel that is really helpful to the project. So if someone posts a message which others are thankful or grateful for, Savannah CRM uses some kind of natural language understanding to flag those up and say, hey, this might be a contribution. We then review those contributions, and by we, the whole of the leadership team have access to this tool. And we decide then whether that is a contribution or whether it's not. So we have the option to manually approve and reject, because not everyone saying thanks is actually saying thanks genuinely because someone's been helpful. Sometimes it's someone saying thanks in a sarcastic way. So we do have to understand the context a bit and decide, yes, that is a contribution, or no, that's not a contribution. Likewise, if someone's providing feedback, it listens for certain words that are generally speaking associated with people giving feedback. And that gives the team the option to accept or reject that as useful feedback. On the forums, if you post a response to a thread on the forums and your response is marked as the solution to the original question, because the person who posts it can tick a box to say, yeah, this is the solution, it solved my problem, that is considered to be a contribution because it's helping someone, it's giving them the answer to the question that they've asked. On meetup.com, we have a pro account for the Mautic community. Anyone who hosts or speaks at an official Mautic meetup, so if they're under meetup.com/pro/Mautic, that's considered to be a contribution because you're running something that is benefiting the Mautic project and the Mautic community. If you're an author of a blog post on the Mautic.org blog, that also counts as a contribution. And we do fully recognise that a lot of the time it's not just one person who writes an article. There can be people who are proofreading, there can be people who are helping with the editorial process, there can be people who are creating designs or doing the SEO or any number of things to do with an article that actually needs to be done before it goes live. Those people can be credited with a Jira issue. So that's why we use Jira across the whole project, because it allows us a central way that all teams and all working groups can use to track what they're working on publicly, so everyone can see and everyone can jump in and take tasks on, but also importantly to make sure that everyone who contributes to getting something over the line, whether it's a blog post, whether it's making the deprecation of a bit of code, whether it's writing a knowledge base article, everyone who's contributed to that happening can be associated with that article, have a subtask, and that subtask, when it's assigned to the person and then marked as done, that actually counts as a contribution. So every team, every working group has this facility, and most of the team leads and working group leads know how to use this pretty proficiently. We also track Mautic community-focused and purely altruistic podcasts. So these are podcasts that only exist to promote news about Mautic and the Mautic community. They don't have any commercial funding or sponsors or anything like that. It's purely there to give information about Mautic. So currently that's the Mauticast, but if there were other podcasts, then we could also associate other podcasts with this. If you write an article for kb.mautic.org, the knowledge base, or you translate an existing article, you're written as the author of that article, and therefore you get a credit for that contribution. And as I mentioned with the blog posts, if other people help with creating an article, then in the education team there's actually a whole load of issues of like articles that we want to write for the knowledge base. We would just create an article and credit whoever helped to get that article over the line as well. So if it's not just you who wrote it, there are facilities to make sure other people are actually given credit for that. If you attend formal team and working group meetings, then that is also considered to be a contribution because you're giving your time and your knowledge and your expertise. It's down to the team leads and the working group leads to make sure that all of the meetings that have been held in that period of time are logged in Savannah as an event. So that is a manual process. It's a fairly painless manual process, but I do usually send a reminder before the end of the month to make sure team leads have done that and made sure that all of the meetings they've had, the people who've attended, have actually been credited. We also monitor Stack Exchange for any posts that include the Mautic tag. And if you have an accepted answer, similar to the way that it works with the forums, if your answer is accepted, then that is considered to be a contribution because you've answered the post of the original person and it was something about Mautic. We also have a Reddit subreddit, r/Mautic. So we monitor that, and this is similar to Slack. Savannah will ingest the information, and if it thinks that someone is providing help to another person, it flags that up for us to review and manually approve or manually reject based on our understanding of the context. So those are all the ways that we currently track contributions. I'm always interested to hear if there's places where you think people are contributing and we're not actually tracking them. Please do reach out. If you want to know more about Savannah, about how it works, how it tracks contributions, go and have a look at the documentation. Savannah is an open source project, so if you know Django and you want to get involved and there's something that's missing that you think needs to be implemented, by all means go and contribute to them on GitHub, because obviously then that will come downstream to us. So yeah, other than that, I think that's everything that I wanted to cover in this session. If you have any questions or if there's anything that you're not clear about or you don't understand how it's tracked, please let me know. I'm more than happy to chat on a one-on-one basis. And yeah, thank you everyone who does take time to contribute to Mautic, because really we would not be where we are without your help, and it's so important that we do keep those contributions coming in. So just know that every contribution to Mautic is valuable and is helpful when it helps to move Mautic forwards and it helps us to make progress. So thanks again for your interest and for watching this, and drop me a line if you have any questions. Bye.